All right, everyone, let's go. So we're actually now, although this is class number 2, we're actually starting the book of Devarim. And we're actually not, even though it's it's Devarim, but we're not going to talk about the Parsha today. We're going to talk about the land of Israel. Because since we are in the month of Av, and we are commemorating, we're mourning over the destruction of the 2 Jewish commonwealths, the first one and the second one. In the book of Yirmiyahu, I believe, it's in Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah, it says that the walls of Jerusalem were breached on the 9th of Av. In the second temple, the walls were breached on the 17th of Av. So why don't we fast on the 9th of Av? So it says because the breach in the first temple was small, and had the Jews rallied together, they would have been able to fight back. If they would have had Jewish unity, they would have been able to fight back. The 17th of Tammuz was the breach of no return. Then they continued fighting in Jerusalem, and then in the beginning of Av they breached the temple compound, and finally in the 9th of Av, both temples were destroyed. And ever since then, well, ever since the beginning, we know the Jewish people have a connection to the homeland, even though the Jews were born and raised outside Israel in the diaspora, but Jews have this certain connection to the land of Israel. Maybe it's the falafel,
Shwama.
it's the shwama, no, or
the olive oil.
the olive oil. The
Popeye.
the dairy food there is the yogurt and ice cream there is.
Ooh,
It makes you want to hop on a plane right now.
I'm done with planes for a little while.
Done with planes for a while. So the question is, why are Jewish people? This is the question we're going to talk about tonight. Why are Jewish people so connected to the land of Israel? They live thousands of miles away, or they weren't born there. Never. They were for thousands, hundreds, millions of Jews. Talking about from the destruction of the second temple, they never made it to Israel, and yet they were connected. They were concerned about it. They mourned it. There's a story. I don't think it's true, but it's a good story. I mean, it's a story. I don't know if it hasn't been verified. So I don't know how you classify a story that hasn't been verified. Is it untrue?
Apocryphal.
Is it not true, or it's unverifiable?
Fictional?
Yeah, but we don't know. We don't know for sure it's fictional, though. We just don't know for sure that it happened.
Theoretical.
That also, I think, is anyway. So the story is, I think, it's with Napoleon or some other great man. I don't mean great as in good qualities necessarily. That he was walking by a shul, and it was Tisha B'Av, the night of Tisha B'Av, and he heard crying and mourning and from inside the temple, and the king, I think I heard it with Napoleon, asked one of his advisors to go in and find out why the people inside were so sad. Why were they crying? And he said that they're crying for their temple that was destroyed. But Napoleon didn't hear on the news, it wasn't reported on the BBC, that any temples were destroyed. I guess it was Al Jazeera. They don't report on that kind of stuff. So he sent his minister back in to ask him how long ago or where was this temple that they're so upset that was destroyed. So he went back in and he tells him the temple was destroyed 1700 years before in Jerusalem. So reportedly Napoleon says a people that doesn't forget the temple will be sure to come back, will be sure to return there. That's how the story goes. Nice story. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. And the truth of the matter is, I don't care, because this isn't a history class, right? And now in the election season, we should be very used to people not telling us the truth, right? Or half truth. Or half truth. So some in the beginning you might say it's because it's our homeland. What do you mean? That's where Judaism got started. I mean, it's therefore there's a you have that emotional, visceral response. But however, that's not enough. to explain the connection. Because let's say we all have lived in multiple houses. Yeah, so you have this emotional connection to the house, but then you move to another house. And after a while, I don't, did Cyril tell you? We went to Argentina and we went to her house she grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
She told you? Yeah, it was a very emotional experience because she hasn't been back there since she's 17. It's the fact that the guy let us in, and the house wasn't changed, and she got very excited. But listen, you move on, you move to another house, and you. Some people say the reason why Jews are so connected to Israel is because security. We need a land. The Jewish people were always persecuted because they were always the odd man out. Either they were too religious or too assimilated. There was always too socialist or too capitalist, right? But I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not making this up, right? There were just two. So they said you need a land, but if that's the case, then any land would do. Going back to what was it Herzl? I think it was Herzl. Yeah, they offered him some land in Uganda, I believe.
Or Ethiopia, one of the.
I think it was Uganda, or Ethiopia, whatever it was. And according to what we're saying here, he was ready to accept it because it's about land. But everyone else rejected it. Why? Because there's some connection that doesn't seem to make any sense. All right. So it is sort of a Parsha class. So we got to quote something from the Parsha. So in the beginning of this week's Parsha, Eila Hadvarim, this is right in the beginning, text number 1, page 18. So Moshe gives, this is the end of the journey. It's 40 years since the Jewish people have left Egypt. Excuse me. And Moshe is telling the Jewish people now in his last will and testament exactly what he expects of them, and he starts off a quite of a lengthy discussion. This went on for a few days. Not that he didn't stop, but they reconvened for quite a while. And he gives them markers, and it came to pass, and he talks about all these different places and all these different experiences. They went to Chorev, and he dwelt a long time by the mountain. And then after a while, verse number 7 says, "Okay, enough by the mountain. Let's go to the land that God had promised you." Now, these few verses, it's very interesting to learn Rashi's commentary, because some of the places that Moshe quotes as places, we don't find them as places. Those aren't the names. So Rashi actually explains. This is why you need to learn with Rashi's explanation. Rashi explains these were actually not metaphors. These were actually reminders of things that happened, like a place called Di Zahav, a lot of gold. There was no place called a lot of gold. It was an event that happened because of a lot of gold, which was the making of the golden calf, and different things. It's a now. So and then he mentions the famous story with the spies, right? The Jewish people 2 years into their freedom, well, 2 years after the Exodus, they came over to Moshe and said, let's send spies to figure out the land, and they sent spies, and we all know the story. Or you should know the story, unless you have COVID brain. No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. See, now you have an excuse, right? And they came back and they said it's impossible, and God got upset, and they stayed in the desert for 40 years. But it's not exactly true that they stayed in the desert for 40 years, because they were already in the desert for a year and a half. The Exodus happened on the 15th of Nisan. Okay, April 15th, tax day. Not
Full
exact.
moon. Think about it.
It happened on the 15th of Nisan. 2.5 months later, almost 3 months later, on the 6th of Sivan, they received the Torah at Sinai. Then you have a whole story. Then it's 40 days and 40 nights, and you have a whole story of the golden calf. The Moshe comes down on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is September, October, whatever it is, right? This year Yom Kippur is almost December. It's so late this year.
No, Yom
I
Kippur is
know.
the middle of October.
I know, which is a rarity. The fact that Rosh Hashanah is in October is this year's a very
Yeah, it's weird.
First snows.
yeah. The question is this year: do I put the air conditioners in the sukkah or not? I mean, these are real questions. Yeah.
Serious
It's not a question.
questions.
You'll put the air conditioner.
Yeah.
The question is, do you turn on 12 air conditioners all at once, or is it only?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have frozen challah. Let's take it out of the sukkah and put it outside. Anyway,
To icicles.
exactly. So then after Yom Kippur, Hashem gives Moshe the commandment to build the Mishkan. The building of the Mishkan commences on the 11th of Tishrei, completed on the 25th day of Kislev, but the Mishkan lays unused. It's waiting for the month of Nisan to be dedicated. So a year after the dedication, a year after the Exodus, is the dedication of the Mishkan. Then you have the Mishkan, and then you have Pesach again, Pesach, and the story of Pesach Sheni, and then they appoint the all the judges, the Sanhedrin and the judges, and only then, I think it was in the month of Sivan. I think the month of Sivan, the month of Tammuz, they sent out the spies, and then you have, so it was really, the punishment was really like 38 and a half years. All right, because the spies came back on Tisha B'Av. One of the things that we mourn is the spies came back on Tisha B'Av. That's why we fast, because the Jewish people were crying, or the day of Tisha B'Av, Tisha B'Aviv. The Jewish people were crying. God's so bad to us, and God wants to kill us, and all that. So God said, you're crying for nothing. From now on, I'll give you something to cry about. Really, that's what the Medrash says. And ever since then, the 9th of Av turned into a day of calamity for the Jewish people. Right, so we're talking about 38 and a half years. My
daughter has said that the opinion right now is that if any attack comes on Israel, it's going to come on the 9th of Av.
Yeah, I've seen that also. I think Iran is playing the intimidation game. They want Israel to be on edge. They want Israel to feel all anxiety. Okay.
Israel's been feeling anxiety since 1948. It's nothing new.
I read a good post today. It says America had 9/11. It's babka, chocolate babka. America had 9/11. London had 13/11, whatever it is, I guess November 13th. Israel has 24/7. That's so we see. So we see over here. See text number 2 that Moshe, the Jewish people were at at Mount Sinai for a long time. Then Moshe said, "All right, guys, we did everything we had to do here." They were at Mount Sinai from Rosh Chodesh Sivan. They were there for 11 months. So the question is, everything that they did,
Who cleaned up afterwards?
right? Everything that porta potties, a lot of porta potties. Everything that they, by the way, just on a side note, since you brought it up, one of the complaints that Jewish people had against the mun and the water was they never had to use the bathroom. They called the mun lechem haklekel, this messed up food. Why? Because why do we go to the bathroom? Because to get rid of waste. But if the water and bread come from God, there's no waste. So the food was 100% absorbed in the body. Right? Talking about that. Lower verse. Anyway.
I could use a phrase, but we're in short. So I won't use
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
It begins no.
Yeah. Anyway, by the way, in last week's parsha, we learned that the tribe of Gad in Reuven had tremendous amount of cattle. So one of the rabbis asked, how come they had more cattle than everyone else? Why does it say they had a lot of cattle and the tribe of Yehuda didn't have? Because Gad and Reuven said, if God's giving us bread, we don't need to eat anything else. God gives us bread, it's good enough for us. So while the other tribes ate meat and everything else, they said, no, that's why they had so much more than anyone else. All right. So the question is, all these things are nice, but why can't you do it in Israel? Why didn't God take the Jewish people straight from Egypt take them straight to Israel, and then give them the Torah, build your temple, make your court, whatever it is that you're doing, do it over there. Are you trying to relax? Like sometimes, in my house I have the couch, and we have the playroom, and we go to the couch to relax, and the kids come and make noise, play. Say, whatever you're doing, we're very happy you're playing, just go play over there. Why do the Jewish people have to play in the desert? Go play in Israel. Do it, all your Jewish stuff, do it over there. It's a good question. Yeah?
You're talking about, from the Exodus you're talking about.
Yeah, go straight from Egypt to Israel.
Yeah, but part of the reason was that they had a slave mentality, so they needed time to get away from that mentality and realize that they could, they were the masters of their own whatever.
So first of all, you're quoting what it says in the verse. In the beginning of Beshalach, it says, when the Paro sent the Jewish people from Egypt, and God did not take them straight. If you look at Egypt and look at Israel, the quickest route is hugging the coast of the Mediterranean, right? Mm-hmm. God doesn't take them like this. Why? Because He knew that the Philistines would fight the Philistines, and the Jewish people would, because of the slave mentality, let's go back to Egypt. So God purposely took them a roundabout way. But ultimately, it didn't work. They couldn't get the slave mentality out of them. That's why they kept saying, let's go back to Egypt. Whenever you read the story, you're thinking, how could you say, let's go back to Egypt?
Because that's what they were comfortable with.
It's like, it's like a Stockholm syndrome, right? Although,
Absolutely.
Is it Stockholm syndrome?
No,
Yeah, well, will they change? They were afraid of change.
true.
I'm saying so.
That's true.
So I don't know what the disease is, but even though they were getting abused and everything else, they couldn't deal with their own. So it wasn't that they were such bad people, sitters. They weren't, by the way. That's a misunderstanding of the Torah to think of that generation that left Egypt and ate the man and walked through the sea and had Moshe and got experienced the giving of the Torah Mount Sinai was a sinful generation. That's a mistake, by the way. In fact, that generation is called the greatest generation. It's a generation, there was no generation that knew Torah and observed mitzvot like that generation. Think about it. What do you do the whole day? They learn Torah. Like the famous story, I've told the story a million times. The guy walked into his rabbi and said, Torah is supposed to be about holy people, and these people don't stop sinning. How come these guys who went out of Egypt, how come they made it in, what are they doing in Cooperstown? Right? You think about it, Torah is Cooperstown, right? I mean, think about it, right? It's the Hall of Fame of the greatest people. So either you're in the Hall of Fame of bad, Paro, Haman, or you're in the Hall of Fame of good. These guys are bad. Why are they, and the Jewish people, how come they're? So the rabbi answered him, said, listen here, hey, punk. He said, from their Averos, a Torah was written. I don't know if anybody's writing books about your mitzvahs, all right? So just get out of my office. So first of all, let's talk about having a land. Having a land is very important because the land forges national identity. So like now at the Olympics, everybody's proud with their flag and this and that. And we see in text number 3, after the Tower this is after the desert. Sorry, after the desert, they come out of after the flood. Sorry, after the flood, they come out of the ark and they all spread out. Everybody according to their land. Everybody see the language. So we feel. Where are you from? Like in the line from Fiddler on the Roof. So where are you going? So I'm going to New York, America. Says, I'm going to Chicago, America.
We're neighbors.
We'll be neighbors, right? Right. So when you see. Right, so there's something about the land that gives you an identity. But that's for everyone else. The Jewish people, what makes us unique is not our land; it's a Torah. When did we become a people? When we entered into the land of Israel? No.
We got the Torah.
We got the Torah. In fact, if you look at text number 4, Hashem calls us a nation by the giving of Torah. He says, you shall be a kingdom of priests and a kingdom of princes and a holy nation. So it's only by the giving of the Torah that we are called a nation. So what's the difference between a geographical identity, home-based identity, and a holiness-based identity? The the land mass never goes away unless you're from that theory that really the world was all one big landmass and some cosmic event caused it to
It's not a
drift.
cosmic event, it's called plate tectonics.
Whatever.
Gwanda was the beginning. That's what they called it.
Is that when
No, it's
Atlantis was
called
lost
13.
under? Is that when Atlantis was lost? No. No. Okay.
No, Atlantis was lost when somebody pulled the plug out of the big bathtub.
No, just the opposite there.
It's saying-
Someone left the water on, so they're under the water.
Well, no, the bathtub was actually in the middle of the Mediterranean,
Ah.
some people say. And, it was a place where they could sit and bathe,
Yeah.
But when they pulled the plug out, the water came in instead of going out.
There you go.
Okay.
But Hashem calls us a holy nation. What does it mean to be a holy nation? To be a holy nation is something. It's not tangible. So there's something you have to be conscious of. And because of that, it's very possible for you not to be conscious of. You could be holy and you don't even know it. You're not. I know you, but yeah.
Thanks for confirming. I was worried that.
So for example, by going back to Moshe, and we've spoken about this when we discussed the concept of Mashiach. What does the word Mashiach mean? Anointed, chosen. But until I tell you you're chosen, let's say I decide I'm going to choose one of you guys for a job.
Someone's got to do the choosing. Someone's got to do the choosing.
Exactly, but I'm saying, let's say the person could be chosen, and they don't know they've been chosen, right? So I'm saying,
Not around when they
so I'm
do.
saying is it's you're special because you're chosen, but you don't even know. So the Jewish people are holy, and could be a person doesn't know they're holy. So how do you get to know you're holy?
Learn.
So from the Torah. The Torah is what gives us that holiness. So Hashem says like this, okay. So your identity, you're unique, right? In a few weeks ago, we learned about Bilam told the Jewish people, you're a nation that dwells alone. You have a different identity. Other nations, they are land-based identity. For example, you have a Gentile, right? Came to the United States from Ireland, came from Germany, whatever it is. After 2 generations, I once heard a comedian, black guy. He said he needs some extra college credits. So he says, I took African history. I figured I'm black, right? Turns out I don't know anything about Africa. All I know is it's very far away. It goes into this holy thing. But I actually heard one black lady say, she says, so what does African American mean? I'm American. I'm from Louisiana. I don't know anything about Africa. I'm an American. Why stop calling me hyphenated things? It says my parents are from Louisiana. My grandparents. I'm American. Right now, I don't know. She came from Africa, right? Or someone's grandparents came from Germany. But after 50, 100 years,
Or 300 years.
whatever it is, right? Your identity is tied into the to the place where you live, where your grandparents are from, whatever it is. Jewish people, their identity is more about Torah. It's not about the land. So we have to do more to uncover and fortify our identity. Oh, how do we do that? Just learn Torah is not enough. We have to do something concrete, and there are 2 steps to do that. Number 1, you have to build a shul, and number 2, you have to make sure you're doing the Torah right. So in biblical terms, it means you have to build a temple, you have to build a mishkan, and number 2, you have to have courts. The court. What's the job of the court? These days we think of court as we think of crime and punishment. When you think of court, in the Jewish approach, yes, there was criminal part to the court as well, but that wasn't the main job of the court. The main job of the court was to clarify how to.
What the Torah was saying.
Right? So someone asked me this week. So you're not allowed to travel. You're not supposed to travel for fun during the 9 days. 9 days from Rosh Chodesh Av until Tisha B'Av. It's a time of mourning and sadness. It's not a time for frivolous activities of enjoyment. He said, I'm thinking about moving to Orlando. Can I go see a house? Is that considered traveling?
That's a good question.
I said yes, because you're not going for there for enjoyment. You need a house. It's not,
You need shelter, you need sustenance.
right. So
So
right now,
all
right
these-
now he's living. And someone asked me today, a woman allowed to wax their eyebrows in the 9 days.
Sure, that's painful.
Jerry Seinfeld has a great joke. He says, "I'll never understand how a woman could pour boiling hot wax on their skin, pull the hair out by the root, and still be afraid of a spider."
Good thought.
But I say, so, see, that's the job. Do rabbis deal with criminal and civil, problems? Yeah, but what's the rabbi's main job?
We haven't figured that out yet. We were having
Yeah,
a
that's-
conversation.
I didn't say this rabbi.
Oh, okay.
This rabbi doesn't have a job.
No, his is to keep us well fed.
Exactly, that's Cyril's job.
No, so what is your job?
If I knew, I'd tell you. The rabbis, the court's main job is to clarify the Torah, to figure out what exactly the Torah wants you to do. So if you want to be holy, like God commands you, like you see in text number 5, Hashem says, "Be holy, because I'm holy." Says so. What does that mean? So how are we supposed to be holy because God's holy? What does that mean? Act in a holy way.
Act godly.
Act godly, all right. So if you look at the Medrash says, it says like this. It says the Medrash says, so Hashem says, because you shall be holy because I'm holy. Hashem tells the Jewish people, I'm not like a human being. An ordinary person is not allowed to carry the king's name. He says, no, I want you to carry my name, and that means I want a person to look at a Jew and say, oh, he's acting the way the Eibishter commands. Now, in order for this to be realized, there has to be a physical place which is holy, or things we do in our physical lives that are holy. Otherwise, how do I know you're acting holy now? What does holy mean? Holy means different. Holy means separate. So that's why you look at text number 7 there. It continues. So the main component of a holy nation, you shall be holy, and a nation must be holy because God was holy, is present in their midst. The Jewish nation made a mishkan, a tabernacle, so that there'd be a fixed location for God's holy presence. So first thing you got to do is you got to build the shul.
Is that the actual translation of tabernacle?
What?
It says there a dwelling place?
No, tabernacle doesn't mean the literal translation of mishkan is dwelling place. Tabernacle is Latin. I have no idea, or Greek.
Tabernacle and Michigan are not the same.
Mishkan means a dwelling place. Mishkan comes from the word shachein, to dwell.
Well, that the temple.
Like shechina, sorry,
Yeah,
same word. Shechina, shachin, yeah.
yeah, the temple Michigan Tefillah up in Newton, Mass.
Again.
Michigan Tefillah.
Mishkan tefillah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the correct pronunciation. They call it Michigan Tefillah.
Mishkan, yeah.
Yeah.
So what tabernacle means, I have no idea. Okay, so first thing you got to do is you got to build a shul. There has to be a physical place. Now I'm saying shul, but it was a mishkan and then a temple. So that's any bites on number 10, by the way.
Josh
All right, good.
is not available.
Josh is not available?
So now once we have,
That's what he was.
Just got off pickleball court. Need to go
Um,
home and shower.
so once we have a mishkan, a home base for our holiness. The next thing, so the mishkan or the shul is very nice because we go to a place and we act holy over there and say this is a holy place, or like what was that movie, the comedy movie from the 60s, I think. It says you can't fight here. This is the war room.
Oh, yeah.
Dr.
Monty Python.
Strangelove.
Yeah, right. Monty Python guys, right? Wasn't
No,
was it?
that
No.
was,
Doctor Strange, like Peter Sellers
Peter
and
Sellers and
Whatever. I don't care.
I can look it.
Anyway, so the idea of going to a shul is this is a place where you act holy and you don't act unholy. But that's not enough. Because what about in your own life? So the purpose of a mitzvah, or the mitzvahs, are to transform a regular life into being holy. Because if you don't do a mitzvah, what's the difference between you and some other shmo on the street? In fact, the Gemara tells us that there was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi Yosef Aglili, and he said, "Thank God for the day of the giving of the Torah, because then what would be the difference between me and every other Yossi on the street? I'd be every Jose, right? And just be another guy." So what does it mean? How do we actualize and demonstrate that holiness? That is through mitzvahs. And we see text 22, page 22. Sorry, text 8. It says in the Shema, the Mantiskru, you should remember the mitzvahs and perform them, and you shall and you shall be holy. And this is what the Medrash says. This is, I think text number 9 is a little bit of a long text. Actually, not so bad. And it says a popular idea teaches us that the holiness of the Jewish nation hinges upon the mitzvahs. This is the statement of the Sifri on the verse, "You shall be holy." And how are you supposed to be holy? This refers to doing the mitzvahs. The commandments are the primary source of our holiness. And it's for this reason that our sages instituted the bracha, and when we say, Baruch Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed is God, the King of the world, God of the world, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvahs, He sanctified us with His commandments, v'tzivanu, and commanded us to perform this mitzvah. It's because of the mitzvahs that the Jewish people are commanded, are branded a holy nation. This is what it means. This is what it means to be holy. So it's very important to be holy, and it's very important to do the mitzvahs. The question is, how do you know you're doing the mitzvahs right? How do you know? Maybe, like it says in the Torah, God says, put a black box. How do you know what to do? Right? So there's got to be one guy in this show who tells you, no, you're doing it wrong. No, you're not good.
There's always more than one guy who's telling me.
One guy, that's his job.
There is no wrong way.
Of course there is.
No, there is no wrong way.
Of course there is.
Because according to your very own siddur, it says according to what is your family custom.
Where does it say that? Where does it say that?
You look in the back and it says you wrap it around your hand and.
No, but you can't make up your own custom.
So,
What is when they teach?
Family custom means either Ashkenaz or Sephardi. You're going toward you or over you. That's what family custom means. You can't just make up whatever you want.
They even the way you wrap it around your fingers.
That's again, it's Sephardi, Ashkenaz, Mizrahi. You can't do whatever you want.
Do you make a dalet on your?
No, Sephardi puts a dalet over here. We're Shin, dalet, and then over here we
Yeah, but
put
when
it.
when you do it around the fingers,
No, we
okay,
don't.
you go around the middle finger once, twice, and then
Three times.
both fingers for the third time.
No, we don't do that. Chabad doesn't do that. Okay, but that family custom doesn't mean you do your own thing.
No.
Anyway, so the job of the court, the job of the rabbis, is to clarify how it is. So, for example, right? Let's say Yom Tov falls out, the Chag falls out on Friday night, or let's say, or Saturday night, and when we do Kiddush, we on a Saturday night we also include Havdalah. When do you do Havdalah? Let's say it's a night of Sukkot.
That's a good question.
When do you do? And also you have to say Shechianu. When do you say the bracha on the sukkah? When do you say Havdalah? What's the order? When do you say the bracha on Shechianu? When do you do the bracha on the sukkah? When do you do the bracha on Havdalah? All these things. So these are all mitzvahs you have to do, and you want to do it right. So the job of the court, of the rabbi, is to say you're wrong. The job of the court is to clarify to the Jewish people how it is. And the Rambam talks about, you see, text number 10 is a part of a longer text. The Rambam talks about how in the olden days there was no not so much argument. There was no your custom, my custom. There was a difference of opinion. So you went to the rabbis in your city. The rabbis in your city couldn't figure it out. Then they went to a greater court, greater in knowledge. Then they went to Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, there were 3 courts at the entrance of Jerusalem, and then you had the court at the Temple Mount. And if they still couldn't figure it out, they went to the Supreme Court, and then they fought it out until, it's kind of like in the World Cup. There is no in hockey, because World Cup now has penalty shots. In hockey, you keep going until whoever scores first, right? In hockey, you go overtime, sudden death, right? So in the Sanhedrin, there was no passing it along. You went until you figured it out. So there was no this idea of, that's your custom, my custom. There was one Jewish custom, because the rabbis handed it out, and that's halacha. Halacha means this is the way we follow. And once the Supreme Court handed down a ruling, you couldn't go different. So, for example, if you lived in Haifa and your city rabbis told you one thing, you can do it. And rabbi in Yafo said another thing. But then when they found out about these things, it's kind of like the lower court, the appellate courts.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring it to the Supreme Court. Once the Supreme Court issues a ruling, you couldn't say, I still think my rabbi's right. You do that, you're out. You're excommunicated. There's no, right? This is the law.
There's no waiting until somebody on the Supreme Court passes away and
Right,
try
that,
again.
no.
In Chabad, you don't
Okay,
do
not
that.
not now. This is later. All right.
Talking to Phil.
So now,
Larry, he doesn't have time for that.
so not in the middle. It's off to that topic. So now, we have the Jew, who's holy, and we have and how do you express the holiness? We have the Beis Hamikdash, and we have the mitzvahs, and we have the court to make sure we're doing the mitzvahs. The court is really part of the mitzvah. It's not. Where does it come together, tie in together? Israel. Israel is called the Holy Land. Forever it's been called the Holy Land. Not because we make it holy, because it is holy. And that's why we're going to read. I mean, you could read now in the 9 days about the destruction, and you can read in not in this parsha, but later on where in Parshat Kisavai, we read it before Rosh Hashanah. Hashem says, if you guys don't behave, the land is going to kick you out. It's going to cough you out, so to speak. Why? Because the land is holy. You don't respect it, there's going to be consequences. So the Jewish person doesn't make the land holy. The Jewish person reveals the holiness of the land that's there. So you see in text number 12, when after Yeshua crosses the Jordan River with the Jewish people, he meets a person. He thinks it's an angel. He thinks it's a person, and he's told, take off your shoes because the land which you're standing on is holy, similar to when Moshe stood by Har Sinai. But what the angel was telling Yeshua was, you have to understand the land of Israel is not a regular land. A person has to see text number 13. The Shalah says a person has to conduct himself considerably different. There's even a rabbi who says that if a person is not confident that he won't be able to conduct himself in the proper manner, don't go to Israel, because you have to respect the land.
Mm.
I'm not saying that's the law everyone has to follow, but that's what it says. So now, you could look at the land of Israel, and there's mountains and there's valleys, and it's a very beautiful country. But is it holy? Well, what makes it holy? So you see, the Medrash says. So the Medrash says that our job is to bring out that holiness. So look at text number 14. The Medrash says something interesting. It says that if God would have led us straight from Egypt to Israel, we wouldn't have appreciated it. Because what makes something holy? God does. So what does Hashem say? Hashem says, first you got to appreciate me. You got to appreciate what holiness is, and then you can go to the land, and you can appreciate the holiness of the land. If they would have gone to Israel, they wouldn't have appreciated it. That means that they had to get the Torah, and they had to build the Mishkan in order to appreciate what's there. So if they would have gone straight, they wouldn't have appreciated anything. And this is what the Rebbe says in text 15. The Rebbe says, you go all over the world, and everybody calls Israel the Holy Land, and whatever language, in English, Russian, etc. Israel is called the Holy Land, and text number 16 is quite a lengthy text, and he says
No vowels.
no vowels. Yeah, that's right. See, and he said all the Jewish people. He says we are inheritors of the land. And the Rebbe is explaining here in text 16. It says every Jewish person is connected to the land of Israel, whether you like it or not. Our job is to reveal the holiness within ourselves and to reveal the holiness within the land of Israel. So because there's a three-way Bermuda connection, Bermuda Triangle, there's Jew, Israel, Torah. So when a Jew acts and according to the Torah, he's bringing out the holiness not only within himself, but he's bringing out the holiness within Israel. It's all connected. If you look at the last paragraph of text 16 here, it says practically. This means that when any Jew, even a young child, studies Torah and observes mitzvahs, they create iron and copper locks for the entire Jewish people. In other words, when one studies Torah and performs mitzvahs, they secure the land of Israel with locks, iron, and copper against any adversary. When a Jew increases his study of Torah and observes the commandments, Hashem, the commander-in-chief of the Jewish nation, collects all that and puts them in storage, so to speak, and subsequently distributes them wherever they're needed. Thus, in any place where any Jews, these Torah mitzvahs add to the connection of the protection of the land of Israel. So now everyone's worried about Israel. What can we do? What can we do? So you know what you can do? You increase in learning. You increase in mitzvot. Because when you increase in mitzvot, because we're all one unit, the Jews in the land of Israel, they benefit from our observance of Torah and mitzvot. And this is why going back to answer the question. This is why the Torah, everything was given in the land, in the desert. Why didn't go in right away? Because the Jewish people had to first get an identity. What's identity? The connection to God through the Torah. But how do you do the Torah? So you need a temple, a place where the godliness is manifest, and then you need a way to bring godliness into your life, and that's the mitzvot. Once you have that, then you can go into Israel and appreciate the mitzvot. And this is why we're yearning for Mashiach to come. Because there's most of the Torah we can't do you know? 613 commandments. There's only 83, I think, that apply nowadays. There's a bunch of mitzvahs that we can't do. So if you want to be the best Jew you can be, you want to go back to Israel, and you want to be able to do all the mitzvahs. And that's why we daven for Mashiach every single day, multiple times a day. 19 times every single day we ask for Mashiach to come. That's just in the Amidah. If you want, guys, you can read the appendix, which is a very interesting account. When Rabin was an ambassador for Israel, and he came to visit the Rebbe, so you hear about it. It's in the back. Rabin says what exactly Rebbe told him, and a very interesting account. If you remind me, I'll show you the video. Okay. Conclusion. Here, we stand with God through the holiness of Israel. We are truly standing with Israel. Key points. After the Jews left Egypt, they did not even attempt to enter Israel before receiving the Torah, building the Mishkan, and establishing courts. Why? Because it was important to establish our identity as a holy nation before entering the land. Holiness is sensitive. It must be cultivated with care. It means it's not readily observant. You have to bring it out. The land of Israel is inherently holy, whether you like it or not. When we act as a holy nation, we demonstrate to the world that the Holy Land is ours. Like Jonathan Sachs said, Gentiles respect Jews who respect themselves. Mm-hmm. Right? We can't. A lot of the problems the Rebbe said we have is because when people ask us about the Holy Land, we say, well, God gave it to us. Over. It's our land. It's a very short answer. The Bible, we're talking about the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews. Half the world population believes in it. Says it right there. What do you? If I asked you 1 + 1, it would take you long to answer. Well, some people say no, it's 2.
It's funny, even when you
Google it, it tells you
What?
when Jews arrived in Israel, about such date and so on.
You know, there's a story that I think it was Ben Gurion. I think it was Ben Gurion. Not sure. They once asked him about Israel, the connection. So he turned to the guy congressman, something, and says, "Do you know what day your forefathers arrived in the United States?" Most people don't think. Most people don't know. Don't think. Whatever it is. So he says, "We Jewish people know the exact day we came to the land of Israel. We've been out of Israel, but we've never forgotten it. It's never been a thing. When we act as a holy nation, we draw blessings for protection and a holy land." All right. Any questions? Keep them to yourself. I won't ask you.
Is 1 + 1 really 2?